Podcast. Real conversations with the people behind Bristol's businesses.
Hello there, and welcome to the Bristol Business Podcast, the podcast where we talk to local business owners and founders about what it really takes to grow a business in our wonderful city. We talk about the ups, the downs, everything in between, the lessons learned. Today I'm joined by Luke Harris.
Hi Luke, thanks for having me initially. I'm the founder and owner of Harris Business Advisory, and we help small businesses build smarter, scale faster, and exit stronger. I've been in business for over 20 years, founding, scaling, and exiting. And that's what we do as a business now. We help others navigate that world.
Awesome. Do you mainly help other businesses in Bristol, or are you more nationwide? Have you got a lot of kind of footprint in Bristol?
So I actually grew up in Bristol, and I live just outside. So obviously I've got a lot of history here, and I still do operate in this area, but it's mainly a mixture between the southwest and the and London, Greater London area. But there's a national presence, national clients as well. Yeah.
Awesome. And it must be a really exciting time to do that now, with everything kind of like everything exploding, especially in tech world and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's exciting. It's good you say that, actually, because there's, I mean, when we're talking about AI and tech in general, I mean, there's a lot of negative press at the minute, but I think it's an exciting time. Obviously, there's some economic struggles. Everyone can see at this point, but I think we're in a great time. I think AI, I think technology, I think inherently humans are out there to try and do good, and I think we'll use it well. You can see already how it's giving people access and starting to level the playing fields in some aspects of business.
Yeah, it's a really, really interesting topic. We're going way off the topic of what we're meant to be talking about, but it is really interesting. I mean, like you said, it gives everyone access to it. But I just want to talk about kind of what inspired you to start the business.
Yeah. So as I said, I've been involved in business over 20 years. I have founded, built business, built teams, built cultures, sales, marketing, everything throughout. And then I've gone through the process of selling business. And although I've been advising small businesses for quite a long time, it was actually quite a few years back I had a national contracting company, and I sold and exited that. I'd gone through the process of trying to navigate that by myself without the experience of, at that point, selling business. I learned a lot. I made a lot of mistakes. I mean, ultimately, in the end, it ended up very successful and ended very well. But there were a lot of mistakes I made along the way that now I know I would do different. It's understanding the time. It's understanding how a buyer or investors, how they think, what they want to see, the whole process in general. So if I was to do that again now, I would have probably had somebody there help guide me through it who had the experience.
Yeah.
So that effectively started to build more of a offering of helping people to exit and sell businesses. I'd always been involved in helping them to build them.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing that made me move into this was the struggles and the difficulties that I'd had along the way, because there were a lot of those dark times, like I can imagine a lot of people can relate to. And if I can and my team help people to avoid those mistakes or navigate them and get through them, then we're doing a good job.
Yeah, no, definitely. Do you subscribe to the theory that like mistakes are always growth opportunities, they're always lessons in disguise?
My question would be back to you. What's the other choice?
Exactly.
The other choice is negative and will destroy. Uh, uh, Not for 1 second am I saying bury your head in the sand.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is every way you call it, a mistake or a failure, is an opportunity to grow, and that's a choice we have. That's not that isn't the way everybody naturally looks at stuff, but it is a choice we have.
Yeah, I love that because that's how I see it. I mean, no one's going to go through, whether it's business or personal life, absolutely perfect, making no mistakes. And if we let them, those mistakes will just derail us because they get into your heart and you're like,
I use this analogy all the time with my kids. Actually, I've got 3 young children, and anybody out there who has children, they'll be able to relate to this. I mean, you can go to the fact when they started walking, riding a bike, and how many failures, how many times did they fall off, and if they stop there, they'll never learn, will they?
Yeah.
And it's exactly the same in business. But I think as adults, we start to get conditioned by those very young, and it stops us from trying, and it makes us scared of failing. When the reality of it is that I don't think there is anything as failure as long as you're still in the game.
Yeah.
There's another day, and those times do pass. There is always something on the other side, and for as long as you keep going, you've not failed.
100%. I love that. It's just, yeah, it's all about mindset, isn't it? Mindset changes everything. If you've got the mindset that you're going to move on from this kind of struggle and this time next year, Rodders, it's just, yeah, it's not over when you lose, it's over if you quit. If you lose a deal, then you get on to the next one and the next one. You don't just give up. So, yeah. Um, So what problems were you seeing in businesses that you felt that you could help?
I mean, I have used all these different services at some point during my time in business, and you've got mentors, you've got coaches, you've got advisors, uh, you have business brokers. All of these had their part to play. But what I did see is there's effectively nobody helping to navigate the overall process who's been there and done it and lived it and can relate to the difficulties and the struggles along the way and the emotions. It's all very well and good saying this is what needs doing, but then there's the practicality of actually making that happen. And I think from my perspective, by taking the journey that I have, it allowed me to help identify and see that there's this bit missing where there's an overall synergy that can come together, bringing all those parts together. Yes, they all have their individual responsibilities and different times that they're needed, but in general, I think it's taking one in isolation doesn't usually get you the results.
Nah. Cool. So just want to talk a little bit about your Bristol roots, Bristol connections.
You can tell it on Bristolian, can you?
I missed that.
Now you can tell that far. Yes, I grew up, lived in Bristol the majority of my life. Later years, once I met my what would have been future wife, we moved outside of the city and became more rural. But I actually grew up in Kingswood, St. George area, and that's where my family still live around that way. I love Bristol as a city. I spend a lot of time up in London now, and I love the energy there. But I love a lot of things about Bristol. I think there is a big creative element in Bristol, huge. huge created. There is a lot of heritage here, but a big part that I think helps Bristol be great. It's multicultural, and when I actually look at the, you can relate this back to business, you relate it back to just people in society. When you have this mix and this multicultural society or business, however it is, whether it's different skill sets and different cultures, you get this innovation come out of things and progression. I think people can say the old analogy of birds of feather flock together, which is great in one aspect, yeah, but then it's also limiting. So Bristol, I think, has some great potential. I get very frustrated when I'm in the bigger cities and I feel the energy there. You see how much maybe whether it's local government are helping those places to thrive. And I don't know the answers, but I do feel like as a city we maybe underachieve. I feel like we're the biggest city in the southwest, and I don't think we really put ourselves on the map. There's been some great people come out of it and some great businesses, but I think we should be doing more, and I think there should be a lot more incentive for from the powers that be to drive some growth and success in the area.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, I generally work in tech, and most of those have been Bristol-based companies, so huge companies that were like at the forefront of kind of workforce management tools, and it was just so far ahead of everyone, but it's not pushed. I mean, I also spend a lot of time in London going to see clients, and I love going to London. I love leaving London as well because it's just too manic for me. But spending like a day in London, you're like, this is just, it just gets to you. But yeah, Bristol is, yeah, it's just an amazing city.
Yeah, and I think there's, look, I said it's a big city. It's a big city, but there's also this intimacy. You don't have to go too far. I mean, I've been on the other side of the world at some points. In fact, I was in Australia last year for business, and I was sat in a cafe, and I could hear a Bristolian accent, and it was just crazy. There's you don't have to go far to know somebody who knows somebody. There's this intimacy of relationship and within Bristol, but then it's also big enough. It's expanding and it's getting bigger and bigger. So it's a great place to be.
Yeah, the future's bright, definitely.
Yeah.
So what type of businesses typically come to you? Is it small businesses, large businesses, bit of a mixed bag?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag, but I mean, it can range from businesses doing 100,000 in revenue, a couple of 100,000, up to 40, 50 million. I stick within the SME range. And usually these businesses are in one or three stages, one of the three. And the first one, which is quite often a scenario, is there's a difficult situation happening and they need help to navigate it. They could be in a bit of a distress. It can be turnarounds. These are quite often could be companies that are quite young, or they may be established, but there's been some incidents and things happen. I mean, there was quite a lot of those I got involved in after COVID for obvious reasons. Those businesses in general, I always look at them and think, if I was in here 6 months ago, if I was in here a year ago, and the team were in here then, we wouldn't have got to this position, but hindsight's great. So the first port of call there is we focus on the immediate, what is needed, what is the high pressure thing that needs sorting now, what's the low hanging fruit. So that can be some turnaround projects or potentially some project based with a fixed result at the end. And then there's the second stage where you've got businesses which are established, they've been running, but they're stalled. They've become lazy and their energy isn't there. They still have this ambition. They want to grow something big, and they've got this purpose that they want to achieve things, but they don't know how. they've been stuck in a rut for so long. And that's when it's coming in. It's usually a culture shift of some kind. Yeah. It's helping to build leadership teams and management teams, building systems and processes, and very much during these periods working with founders and owners to make sure we're actually working to a common goal. And then there's the third stage, and that is businesses who, majority of the time, they're established, they've been about for quite a while, and you have owners and founders who have an exit or a sell on the horizon. And that's where we come in. We'll help them refine business plans. We'll help them best present the business, pitch decks, and we'll also find suitable investors and help to put them in touch with investors and buyers of the company and actually navigate that whole process. So that's usually the three types of stages businesses would be at to come and work with us.
That's great. I always because I always get curious because you mentioned the dreaded COVID word there, and I mean, in COVID, we'd probably have to have another table in between us to record. It seems strange that COVID was a thing now where we're like back to normality. But how did you find COVID? Were the challenges through COVID, or was it pretty established by then?
At that point in time, I actually was CEO in a national contracting company, one of my businesses. And of course, it was tricky, but that's when I really came alive. There was a potential risk, obviously, to everybody in business, and no one really knew where how things were going to play out. So I worked extremely hard, but my biggest focus during that period was on the team and the people around me and making sure they stayed on course. Of course, I had massive worries during that period, but part of leadership and building a great culture is making sure that people feel safe and they believe in you and that there's a way out. And that's what I did. And ultimately, during that period, we went very much on the offense. We were very strategic, and the business, I think, doubled during that period. So it worked out very well for us. I will say that however much there was strategy, and I'd like to say it was intelligence, and that everybody within the business, that's where it all came from. There's also a little bit of grace and luck that comes into it. Some of the sectors that we were in actually thrived, and there's the construction sector in general actually went pretty well. It showed it was a backbone in the economy. At that point, I was still with the advisory work, working with some people in hospitality, which was a totally different bag.
Yeah, that must have been brutal for them. So how do you approach understanding a new business? So as you go in and let's say it's a care business, just because that's what I know. How do you get an understanding of a new sector or a new kind of vertical or a new business?
So when it comes to business has different areas, and all those areas will be prevalent in every business, whichever sector you're in. It's just that what proportion and how much time and effort and what stage of growth these businesses are at. I'm talking across sales, marketings, there's legals, there's financials, there's people within the business and operations. So it applies to every business. Now, going into a particular business that I've obviously not worked with before, the first part is really understanding and listening to what they're saying. Because quite often people will say what they think is the problem, but the more they talk about it, and what you got to remember is I'm sat on the outside. I'm not in there. I'm not the one living the day to day and maybe coming up with a theory on what the issues are. So when I'm stood outside looking in, I have this non-biased view, I suppose. Yeah, and it allows me to be able to delve into the root cause of what the issues are. Quite often people will come with issues and that isn't actually the issue. So largely it comes down to listening, understanding, speaking with people, but also understanding why they're doing what they're doing. And probably most importantly, it's working and having access to the founder and whoever is spearheading this. Because ultimately, the success and failure of any business will come down to that.
Awesome. Are there any misconceptions or myths that people might have about working with an advisory service?
So I think whether it's a misconception, I'm not really sure. But what I would say is there's often quite a lot of resistance. There'll be a lot of people listening now who may feel that this is something they need. But there's often some maybe shame or embarrassment for asking for help. And also, once you let people start looking under the hood and into your business, people can start to get nervous or feel like there's some trust issues and things like that. And I just want to add, everything is confidential for a start, but nobody has got it all right. I've been in this game a long time. I made a lot of mistakes, and I would probably say that that's a huge misconception that there's going to be judgment into there, because I've worked with some big businesses. I've been sat in rooms with some companies that are doing huge revenues. And some of their problems, I sorted when I was doing a couple of 100,000. Vice versa. Yeah, it's different things. The other thing you've got to have to get is, look, from a cost perspective, or how can I justify this cost? And I mean, I never advertise and never say a cost, because it is effectively an investment, and that's the attitude people need to be looking at this. What I would like to say, I use the term of I've paid my ignorance tax.
Yeah.
So I've made my mistakes over the years, and if I can go in and, whether it's a fee or project based, however it sits, there's always a full confidence that further on down the line, people are going to reap the benefit of this investment. So those are probably two of the biggest things that I see when people are considering any advisory or consultancy work.
What would you say the most overlooked aspect of growing a business sustainably will be?
I'm going to say two things. One is the leader. Some people are aware that's the case, but I come across a lot of people who don't take responsibility and there's no accountability at the top. And the other thing I would say is there's opportunity everywhere out there, and entrepreneurs in general will see opportunity. That's what they did. But a huge mistake that I think people make quite a lot is they see this opportunity, and there's this social media world, and there's this, it's been romanticized to take a big leap, take a big risk to get what you want. And I think it's Richard Branson, actually. I think in one of his books, he says this. I think it was the story of when he founded Virgin Airways. So there was an opportunity he saw.
Yeah.
There. Huge opportunity. But when you actually look at how he structured what he did with, I think it was Boeing, the planes, he actually structured that in such a way where if it didn't work out, he could give those planes back to them. So where I'm going to with this is, there's opportunity and there has to be focus on moving forward. But bring the foundations up along the way, because there will be issues, there will be setbacks, but how far are you going to fall back? So it's basically making sure that you're building the foundations and putting some risk protection in place along with striving for those opportunities.
Awesome. Do you ever hear when you go in the phrase, because I've had a few places when I've joined, that's how we've always done it. when you suggest the change? Is there any kind of like egos attached to that kind of processes?
Oh, 100%. I get that all the time. And that's not always bad. That's the way we've always done it. If it's getting you results, that's great. I would caveat that and say there still may be a better way.
Yeah.
But it usually comes back with this. Okay, how has that been serving you? Has that been getting you the results, that process? The approach you're taking, is it getting you closer to where you want to be? Is it moving the dial? And then quite often when you look into it and they start answering these questions and you're going into what they've always done, you don't need to tell them it's wrong. You don't need to tell them it needs to change. They can see, because if they want these results, then can you directly correlate it to the actions you're taking? And if you can, then there's a possibility it might need to change.
I think something you mentioned there doesn't move the dial. I read a book, I can't remember, it was by an Olympic rower, I can't remember who wrote it, but the concept of the book was, does it make the boat go faster? If it doesn't make the boat go faster, then we get rid of it. I can't remember who wrote it, but it's a really good book.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know who that was, but I think that kind of tees into where if people don't know where they're going and what they're looking to achieve, and yes, you always set goals along the way, then how do you know if you're succeeding? And that's exactly it. This rower you're talking about, they know what they're looking to achieve. They're trying to make the boat go faster. And if it doesn't contribute, they're not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like that one. So how do you take people from kind of maybe restrictive decision making to strategic long plan thinking?
It's very easy to go in and create a business plan, create a strategy for people and say, here you are, this is what you need to do. I've been there, and there is a reality of this. Quite often people I work with are reactive. They are wearing lots of hats within the business. So the first thing is making sure that we get these people prioritizing their time correctly. So that's managing their diary. That's understanding leverage. That's understanding which actions they should be working on daily, weekly, monthly, which contribute to the goal. But it's, like I said, all well and good saying, here you go ahead and do this, when there's so many other things going on within the business. So it's massively important to make sure that time management and just understanding how to manage days, weeks, and your time. And that's including boundaries. But there's a huge mindset shift. It's going from operator to business owner and working on the business. I mean, we've all heard that plenty of times. But to actually start thinking like that is a different thing. And there's ways we do that we actually create structure around to force those changes. And a lot of that can be understanding how to manage and plan your weeks correctly.
There's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. One of really like that book, but in that he's got an analogy for that. You've got lots of people in the forest like cutting trees down, and then you've got the person above, which should be the business owner, and the people down there cutting them, and they're like, we're making progress, we're going great, and he's trying to shout to them, and they're not listening. We're making progress, but he's like, you're going the wrong way. And again, that's what business owner needs to be, needs to have the helicopter view. So yeah. How important would you say mindset is in a business owner, and how do you change someone's mindset if they have maybe a limiting mindset as opposed to that growth mindset?
I would say it's 90%. I mean, we could sit here now and we could talk about the things where we've changed our lives around, and it's 99.9% going to come from something psychological. on the shift we've made. So it's fundamental. It's fundamental, effectively. Going to your question where you said, how do I change something? The first thing is, I don't ever try to change somebody who doesn't want to be changed. It doesn't mean I don't work with them and can't take them through that process. But all of us have got some preconditioned ways. We've all got a history and events in our past which make us think a certain way. So I'm still the same. I'm exactly the same myself, and I'm constantly, what do I say, shedding a new skin. So we're talking about listening and understanding these people, and over time, the more you understand what drives them, where their skill sets are, you start to show them some wins, how things could be different. Then you start to see these shifts in people. But you can't make somebody change who doesn't want to change. And quite often, I've had this so many times where I've been working with people and their egos, and like I've had it myself. Yeah, their egos stand in the way. And then a year down the line, maybe 2 years down the line, they're coming back to me and saying, oh, I've worked this out now, actually. And, but it's understanding people are usually doing things and there's always a reason. And it's usually something that's happened in the past. That's usually what it is.
Learned behaviour.
Exactly.
Like that. So do you ever have to do work with teams? So is one of your tasks ever to go in and to improve the culture? Because we know what it's like sometimes the culture in business is really important. If there's a kind of micromanaging culture in there, I guess that needs to be changed to kind of open things up. So do you do work with teams and how to structure culture?
Yeah.
And
100%. And that's a huge part, actually. And something that I spent a lot of time understanding myself. I mean, I've had lots of employees, and I had to work that out. And I love that part for a start. And so much of that is empowerment. And so often you see it in business, there is this micromanagement. The more you empower people, the more you can give people a vision of a better opportunity or a better life, and then help them along the way to get there. It's not just a case of saying, right, here we go, you can do this, go ahead and do it. Yeah. If it was as simple as that, they would have done it. Yeah. But every person in a different way. I look at people in life in general, and especially in business, everybody has a unique skill set, whatever that is. The biggest problem I think we find, we try to fit square pegs in round holes. Yeah. So a huge part is finding what people are really good at, what they enjoy, and then you double down and you focus on that. It's maybe the issue, tying into, going off slightly on a tangent, was born with the educational system. We focus on trying to get everybody leveled up, when the reality is, if you really, really want to succeed, then find the bits you're great at and double down on those. And that's largely what I do within business. Yes, you have to bring everything up, but it is the 80-20. It's the Pareto principle. And if you're going to set some business growth down to one thing, it would be that.
yeah, I love that because I've experienced that myself. So when I was sales manager, we had this person who was a cold caller, or an SDR in today's language, because we don't like to call them cold callers or sales at all. But she was very socially awkward, but she was very good at the data side of it. So rather than the linear path is BDR to BDM, BDM to sales manager, we moved her into more of a sales analytical role, so looking at the data, and she absolutely thrived there. And that's because it was a square peg in a square hole. And I think there's just no substitute for getting people. It was Jim Collins who did the book Good to Great. It's all about getting people on the bus, getting the good people on the bus, but making sure they're all sat in the right seats as well.
I think it's very interesting if when you study, like I mentioned, I have 3 young children, and I learn more from them than I do from adults. if you look, we innately follow the things we want to do and what we enjoy in life. My boys are different to my girls, and they enjoy different things. If I try to push them down a certain route, you get resistance. Whereas there's this place of flow, and we do get the most success. We do get the most success as individuals when we get into this place of flow, and that's usually, looking at leadership teams and helping to build a culture. It's really helping people identify where this place of flow is for them and how that sits within a business. Because sometimes it may be slightly different to what they're doing, but how do you transfer some of those things? How can you make the role you're doing tie in with this place of flow for you?
Awesome. And believe it or not, we're almost out of time. So, and closing thoughts.
I think from my perspective, I have been in business a long time and I've made a lot of mistakes. I've had the struggles. It's put me in some deep, dark places at times. If there's anybody who wants help but isn't sure how to do that, they can get in contact with me, and there's no judgment, there's no embarrassment. There will be people who are doing things a hell of a lot better than me in different ways. I think a huge mistake that I've made in the past was not asking for help. Somebody out there has gone through what you've done in one way or another. Your problems are not unique, however much we like to think they are. And there is always a way out of these things in one way or another. And I'd probably say, rather than people trying to think they can do this all by themselves, like I used to think that you have to have all the answers yourself, there's people out there who can speed this journey up for you, safer and hopefully more profitable as well.
Awesome. It's been amazing. Time has absolutely flew by. I know I've learned a lot. Hopefully our viewers have as well. So how do we get in contact with you?
Sure. So if people can go to the website, harrisba.com, that's HARRISBA.com. And anybody who is interested, they can book in a free discovery call where we can work out if we're a fit and whether we can help in any way or another. Also, on LinkedIn, Luke Harris, and you can also follow Harris Business Advisory. So those are the main ways to get in touch.
Cool. And I think we'll be putting some links as well. So all follow the links. It's been, like I say, amazing to chat. Thank you for your time, and it's been really enlightening.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you for tuning in today. Make sure you like, subscribe, drop a comment, and make sure you keep following us. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for joining us on the Bristol Business Podcast. Please remember to leave a like, comment and subscribe. If you are interested in appearing or sponsoring the podcast, contact details can be found in the episode description.